Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This, of course, is episode number 65. So for this week's album pick goes to the very first live album from Whitesnake, and it's actually titled Live at Hammersmith. Now, technically this album was recorded in November 23rd, 1978. This wouldn't get released physically, or at least wouldn't see the light of day until March of 1980. And for a while, it was only released in Japan in March of 1980. This would eventually, later within 1980, would get released at least in Europe. As a part of the Live in the Heart of the City live album, which for most folks that live here, at least within the States, at least Europe and America, was kind of considered the very first live album. But since not very many people were aware of the Live at Hammersmith release, which only the people in Japan were aware of it, this technically it got kind of shunned out in some ways, so that ever since, of course, a lot of the CD reissues, especially the box set, the little box of snakes, or even just the abruptly titled box of snakes, is when this actually got its own standalone release. So without further ado, let me kind of go into a rundown of the actual album. Again, this was recorded in November 23rd, 1978. So it actually features the lineup for Trouble, the Trouble album, and at least Love Hunter. So you basically hear on here, it's David Coverdale, John Lord, Bernie Marsden, Mickey Moody, Neil Murray, and Dick Doyle, or Dick Dole. Dole. That's probably, who knows, I might have butchered the fucking last name there. Who knows? But after, of course, this live, in many ways, I think it's always been kind of stated that live albums are usually considered, an end of an era. This actually would be considered an end of an era in many ways, because after this, Love Hunter would do that, and then Dick Dowell will, of course, would leave the band and be replaced by none other than Ian Pace. So, with that, the songs that you get here, it's actually a very short release, even though technically it clocks in at a little over 36 minutes. It's basically 6 songs. So you basically get songs like Come On, which have been taken from the Snakebite EP, Might Just Take Your Life, and Mistreated, which were both taken from the classic Deep Purple album Burn, which was David Coverdale's actually debut, basically, to a wider audience. And I think as a singer was for sure his debut. So then, of course, Lie Down, which is taken from the Trouble album, Ain't No Love Heart in the Heart of the City, which that and Come On are both taken from the Snakebite EP, which I kind of forgot to also mention. Technically, though, it's actually a cover track, an old blues or R&B song. I think right here it's actually Pierce Welsh, something like that, or could be the two. I'm looking at the fucking back cover here, and the song credits are pretty fucking typed real tiny, so I could barely fucking read. Even if I have the best fucking glasses on, I barely can read the fucking the song credits on it. So all you need to know, it's an old cover tune of an old blues R&B soul track. Then of course Trouble. Taken from, of course, the album Trouble. So there's your rundown of the track listing there, and these are all good live renditions here. All good live renditions. I definitely really like the live versions for like Come On and Lie Down and Trouble here. Even I do like the live version of Might Just Take Your Life, which is actually one of those Deep Purple songs that really rarely at times ever got played, or at least were put on live albums. I think they were played live during the albums such as Burn and maybe Stormbringer, but they never really got, that song never made it to any of the Deep Purple live albums. Even the live recordings with Tommy Bolin, it was never really. So this is just, I think, the most known live album, with, of course, Might Just Take Your Life, but without guys like Tommy Bolin and Richie Blackmore, which, again, both Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody just add a great, they add their own feel to it, and again, it doesn't really completely stray too much from the early versions. They just have definitely a different style compared to like Tommy Bolin and Richie Blackmore. That's definitely for sure. But I should also definitely point out that Bernie Marsden does some vocal duties on this one, because of technically this song, when it was recorded by Deep Purple, it was actually David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes would take turns singing the track, but since Glenn Hughes didn't join Whitesnake, since Bernie Marsden was actually known for having at least a good set of pipes and stuff, and had a good voice to kind of fill in those parts, those Glenn Hughes parts. They both take their turns doing the track, and I think it definitely works out very well on here. And of course, again, I really do like the version of Lie Down on this album. There's definitely I think this does also feature the best version of Whitesnake's cover of Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City, because of the crowd actually starts singing on this track. And you really kind of get on the Live in the Heart of the City version for this song, for this cover. Of course, I dig the version of Trouble here. Mistreated. There's probably a reason about why they added this as the very last one, because this is actually a lot more longer. It's actually close to like over 10 minutes long, actually, on here. And of course, given what kind of track that it is, it's a good. This is a little different sounding compared to other versions of Mistreated. If anything, I actually do still prefer the Rainbow version of Mistreated that was on stage than to this version on here, to this live version. But this is still a fine, decent, live version of Mistreated. Still, that they add their own feel and everything to this track, but I still prefer the version on stage, which just has a much cooler feel to it. And of course, you can't beat Ronnie James Dio. And I think compared to any of the two singers that are able to really kind of give Mistreated any justice, is definitely guys like David Coverdale and Ronnie James Dio. They both are able to actually perform it very well. They are the most that definitely fit that. And since Ronnie James Dio just had that real great bluesy voice to him, they are the only two that can ever pull off this song. And since Ronnie James Dio is no longer alive, David Coverdale, I think, to these days is still able to pull off Mistreated very, very well. Even given his age, he's still able, I think, to pull off Mistreated very well. So with that, this is a very good live album, and definitely one that does tend to get overlooked, man. If it does get overlooked, you can look at the technical stuff for the fact that it was only released as far as outside of Japan as a part of the Live in the Heart of the City live album. At least for the European double LP version, which the second LP would have been this live release right here. But for those that have bought the old Japanese pressing of this, or own the Box of Snake box sets that include this as a standalone CD, this is a great live album, and definitely one of the best live albums, or in many ways some of the definitely underrated albums from Whitesnake. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher Sam out. I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.